Sometimes you meet someone who is so fascinating. Maybe you thought you were fascinating. Then you meet someone who is even more fascinating. Maybe you thought you were amazing. Then you meet someone who is so much more amazing. Maybe you thought you are cool. Then you meet someone who is much cooler than you. And then you realize, okay, you know what? I got a lot of competition out there, but not only competition, this is someone from whom I can learn. Today, we have the pleasure of welcoming into the virtual fireside studio, the Story Warrior Studio, Madame Viola Llewellyn, who is someone if you ask me, where did you meet her? I have exactly no clear account of how we met. But I know that it's thanks to the virtual world, the 2.0 world, that we came into each other's orbit. And since then, I have always admired Madame Viola Llewellyn. Now, is it because she is as quick, as sharp as you can get? No. Is it because she has done all the cool things that I wish I could have done? No. Is it because she is an incredible writer? No. Is it because she is a founder extraordinaire? No. Is it because there are so many ways in which I can say today's guest represents a larger 10x, 20x version of what I want to be when I grow up. But the reason I'm asking her to come in this morning, this afternoon, this evening, depending on where you're joining from, is because she has done it all. And she's even gone to the dark side and come back. Yes. And that's important for us to know that for a high functioning professional, you can go get so close to going to the dark side and you can come back strong. It's because of a spirit of a phoenix that I really ask her to come in and share some views for those of us who are business owners, entrepreneurs, serial entrepreneurs, whatever you see yourself as. If you're someone with an idea, you're a pioneer, you're a trailblazer, you're doing things that others are terrified to do. Now I want to invite you into the Story Warrior studio because you're about to hear from a firebrand who has done it all. And yes, she does it gracefully. Violin, good morning. How
Good
are you doing this morning?
morning to
Yeah.
you.
Yes, yes. Are you in Maryland today? Are you in Russia? Hopefully not Russia. Are you in Ukraine? Are you hopefully not Ukraine? Are you in Europe? Because you travel a lot. You fly. I think all the captains of the airlines in the world know you. Where are you joining from?
Before I answer that question, my dear friend Gideon, I have to thank you for letting me come on your show. And if mutual admiration was an Olympic sport, you and I are sharing the podium in first place, are we not?
Thank
I'm
you so
actually
much.
at home, my favorite sanctuary in Maryland, where I had the pleasure of inviting you for a cup of tea this past weekend.
Oh, yes. And that's truly a sanctuary overlooking a river,
Yeah.
very close to a river. Is that the Potomac or river?
It's the Swan Creek, and the
Swan
Swan
Creek.
Creek, it feeds into the Potomac River.
Oh, I had never been to that part of Maryland or the
Yeah.
capital district until you invited me last Sunday for coffee or tea, and I came and met your husband, and you are the most hospitable people in the world.
Oh,
I
thank
came
you.
in, he said, you were making a call. We started a conversation before we realized we had gone 10,000 miles away, and I was enjoying every single word that he was sharing with me
You see?
about you,
Oh,
his
yeah.
about himself, about your kiddos, about you name it, travel, so on and so forth. So that was really, really very hospitable. Thank you so much. That's truly a
It
sanctuary to
truly is.
behold. Yes.
Do you know what I call Vincent, my husband?
No.
My favorite ex-boyfriend.
Uh-uh. Why so?
Who would marry a bad boyfriend?
Uh-oh. Well,
I
well,
wouldn't.
he has exceptional qualities, I
He's
can
the
tell you.
best.
And you got great eyes, great taste, great everything. So I'll leave it there.
Yes.
So today, for those who are joining for the first time on the Story Warrior channel, we spotlight extraordinary people, people who are unsung heroes, in my understanding, but unsung heroes with untold stories. Clearly, Viola, you are an unsung hero with an untold story. Untold story because I have observed some of the work that you've done. I've asked some questions. I've learned quite a bit about you. And each time you speak, I'm just truly, sincerely fascinated. So tell us, what were you doing around the age of 23? Because 23, I know most people, me, for example, I was still, I was as goofy, as silly as possible, still praying and dying to get my first kiss. What were you doing at 23, if you don't mind?
In at the age of 23, it was the glorious 1980s, and I was still living in Reading, England. I was born in the UK. My parents are Cameroonian, and
Yes.
they had spent every moment they could stuffing as much of Africa and Cameroon into our little home.
Mhm.
So at the age of 23, I had effectively managed the ability to have one foot in the house and one foot outside,
Wow.
because I still had a life and a future to build. But at the age
Mhm.
of 23, my mind was so abuzz with what the future could hold. I hadn't even learned how to calculate how wrong things were going.
Mhm.
I had completely ignored the fact that I was living dysfunctionally in a physically abusive relationship,
Mhm.
but I was also selling mainframes and in high end tech at a time when Black women at the age of 23, they weren't where I was. I was always the only person there. So at age 23, I was spending my days mucketing with older white men and emulating the best of their social behaviors, their sales, and their ability to muscle through in
Mhm.
business. I was honing my ability to deliver a very effective level of BS to get what I want. And I was spending my evenings dancing like a maniac in nightclubs because I could not resist what happens when you let your body go into music. And then I would go home and have to fight off a very bad boyfriend who was very physically abusive. So I had all
Mm.
of these elements in my life, and for better or for worse, they've made me who I am today.
Wow, wow, wow. 23, yes. 23. I think I was at college, yes,
Ah,
in Cameroon. I think I was still writing for a weekly newspaper
oh,
and going doubling same thing at the same time going to college. I was challenged with school because I spent a lot of time out on the road reporting and all of that.
oh yeah.
But to know that at 23, you were already selling mainframes. If you ask me at 23 to define what was a mainframe, I sure learned something about that in my computer class.
Yep.
I would have said it's a large frame that is a main door into a home. I would have said something so off, but
But it's
I
sort of true.
think they were certainly large, right?
Yeah. They were
And
massive. They
they
took
were
up
mass.
whole rooms.
Yes. And my computer science teacher talked about the fact that mainframes they took a lot of space. So
Yep.
my definition would have come close, but it would not have come close in terms of understanding what a predominantly macho white male culture would be doing, and you, a young 23 um, recent immigrant, sometime I think maybe you had moved back from Cameroon to England, and you were trying to. Were you still recent then, or you already
No, we
well settled in?
left. I was born in London, went to
Okay.
Cameroon when I was 12,
Mhm.
and then went back to England when I was 16.
So yeah, you
I was
were.
only gone that's the only time I ever lived in Cameroon my whole life until I started Ovamba. I visited Cameroon for 2 months when I was 21,
Mhm.
and I went back again almost 25 years later,
Wow,
and
wow.
that was it.
But what I find very rare is the fact that you had the fiber, the tenacity, the you know the audacity to hold yourself together in a culture, especially sales culture. I
Mm,
know it a little bit with predominantly guys who
it's
are, like you
abrasive.
said, muscling their way all through because they want to be the top shots, they want to
Yep.
be the top guns, and you were holding it together. Tell me, how was it surviving or thriving as a young salesperson selling computers or mainframes at a time when people did not even know what was a mainframe or a mini frame, or most
Yeah.
people were just
Nothing.
looking, yeah.
It was interesting because the style back then was very macho, very white oriented male default.
Mhm.
But something happens in the universe when you show up as your truest self, and you're
Mm.
lucky when you're young, you are ignorant enough to not know that
Yeah, what?
perhaps you ought to be different.
Yes.
And by holding fast to who exactly you are and remembering that the money speaks for itself,
Mm.
you get an opportunity to create a platform.
Hmm.
So yes, I remember one day having spent a lot of money buying some very white, crisp shirts from Jermyn Street in London,
Hmm.
and feeling really proud of my tailor-made shirts, because that's what the white guys do. There were
Mm.
never any women for me to draw anything from. And I
Yeah.
got home from work one day and my mother had literally started to sew pretty ribbons and lace down the front.
Hmm.
Oh, I was furious. I said, "What do you think you're doing?" And she said, "Well, I just wanted to make them more feminine." And of course, I was young and slightly more ignorant and said, "How dare you? I'm trying to compete with men. Now, you don't wear lace." But when I look back now, she was actually right.
Mm.
There is no need to negate your gender just because you want to succeed.
Hmm.
Not
Hmm.
everyone's going to like or want what you've got to sell. Your
Yes.
job is to find who wants to buy from you.
You, the way
And
that you
when
are.
you are young black female, 23 in the 80s, selling machines that not many people know, the opportunity is that a lot of other people have no idea what they're doing either.
Hmm. Hmm.
Can hide amongst the ignorance and
Yes.
forge a path using knowledge and competence. And if you're constantly being affiliated with other successful people, at some point in time, if you're saying and selling what people want, you will be accepted. They might not want
Definitely.
you, the person, but they'll
Hmm.
want what you got.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm sure you were selling for no ordinary company. You were selling for
Queen
IBM.
Disco and IBM.
There you go. So, how would you say? Therefore, you're clearly a computer pioneer. You're a trailblazer in that
I never
sense.
thought about it that way. Not back then, at
Yes,
least.
absolutely. Now you know from the story warrior.
Thank you,
Okay,
Story
I've
Warrior.
had to calculate it a little bit. So you're a pioneer as far as computers are concerned. What are some of the formative lessons you learned from that work that has served you for the later part of your life?
Depending on what your human design and your wiring is, people learn and retain information in very different ways. The
Hmm.
thing that I learned that is absolutely true, and most Africans would consider is a fat lie, is you do not need to know everything in order to succeed. You really don't. You need to know enough. But
Yes.
what you do need to do with the little you do know is know how to completely parlay it in a
Mm.
variety of ways and methods and deliveries for whoever you are speaking to. If I'm
Mm.
talking about a mainframe to an IBM executive, they're not technical people. They want
Yes.
to know application use, what happens if it breaks down, can I afford it, and what's in it for me. If you're
Yes.
speaking about it to the individuals that were the gods of those days, database administrators, they
Hmm.
want a deeply technical conversation that will also allow them to repeat those words to
Hmm.
their bosses to ensure that they don't get fired for making a mistake. After all,
Yes.
nobody gets fired for buying IBM, if you remember that slogan from back in the day. Move forward a few decades to where we are today. Nobody knows what a mainframe is. We've since gone into distributed computers. So,
Yes.
what do we explain as a mainframe? It is an antiquated piece of equipment that now belongs in a museum because your cell phone's got more power. But back then, what it was a stack of
Mhm.
hardware and software that took up an entire room and needed to be cooled in a specific way, and was able to take a lot of centralized information and various applications that were either built by second users or by IBM themselves,
Mhm.
allowed a distribution of information in a way it could be used and stored. But it was nowhere
Mm.
near what we do today. But those were
Wow.
the days.
So it almost sounds like we have more power in
In our
our
cell phone.
tiny little cell
You
phones
put mine.
than I had to keep mine somewhere so that
You mean
I can.
this?
Yes, that's right. So you mean we may probably have more power in these cell phones than you had in that massive mainframe room,
Well, of course, it's the
relatively.
truth. If anybody is familiar with Moore's law that talks about the acceleration of development and how much information and wiring is on a motherboard, and I believe it either doubles or is times 10 every 2 years. So you
Wow.
get this exponential power of computing into smaller and smaller and smaller spaces.
Yes, that
And
is interesting. Hmm.
that's it.
Yeah, I I don't want to even divert by saying, and that's why I like smaller cell phones. I don't like large cell phones. I want it small so that it almost is unnoticeable. But some people like large ones, like
Well,
by my
back in the
wife.
day when I was running around in my starched shirts and avoiding my mother's sewing skills, I had an early cell phone and it was on a holster in a bag and it was a brick and it was heavy. And I had a Texas Instruments laptop. And if anybody were to go back and Google the Texas Instrument commercials and advertisements,
Mhm.
showed a 14-pound laptop balanced on two eggs saying, "Look how light it is."
Oh,
You know full well if you put 14 pounds on an egg, it's going to crush like no man's
yes,
business.
yes,
But
yes.
that back then was considered wow. I mean, laptops went from being on a bag to being a massive brick with a huge antenna. And
Hmm.
then we had the Texas Instruments were big. Dell was coming along. Compaq was still around. Hewlett Packard. And
Mhm.
we talked about disaster recovery back then, not cybersecurity.
There you go. There you go. And I saw a fair bit of disaster recovery even in the early 2000s when I started to evolve from firefighting to crisis management.
Firefighting,
Yeah,
places
crisis
black
management.
people are never seen. World work
Yes,
back then.
yes. That's my thing. So, like, you go places where people don't go, I go places where people don't go. Maybe that's why we have this amazing connection. But
Mhm.
I also find you to be someone who is as precise, who is as sharp, who is as quick as possible. Is that your British thing? Did you manufacture that in England, or do you say that is from Africa, or is it from America? Which of
Neither.
these continents is that from,
I
or is
was
that
born this
strictly from
way.
your mom? Born that way?
Yeah, I was born
Okay.
this way. I my memories go back a little bit further than the average human being. I can remember being 3 quite clearly with
Wow.
very distinct, specific,
No kidding.
linear connections of memories and ideas. I
Mm.
was born with the ability to communicate very, very clearly because I was always
Okay.
being told, "Be quiet, stop talking to strangers." I'd go up to anybody, say, "What's your name?" Tell me, I had zero filter and no barriers. But the
Yeah.
difference came with my dad. My dad was way ahead of his time. This Bangwa man who was born in the 40s,
Mhm.
actually the 30s, um,
Wow.
somehow was very interested in classical music, even
Yep.
while he was living in the place known as Victoria back in the days. He
Yep.
loved to read. He was
Mm.
always using Greek mythology and Roman mythology as my bedtime stories, or making up stories, or making me make up stories. And he was a fan of what they call hot housing. So my dad taught me to be able to use all my senses and
Wow.
experience and to retain information and connect information to bits and pieces. So, with this
Wow.
framework and this groundwork of how to frame the world and process
Mhm.
it and understand where I fit in it, it was
Mhm.
very helpful when the things that happened to me in my later years prevented me from going to university. So, it never
Mhm.
became an issue because the ability to express and
Mhm.
persuade a person and explain things, connect and have empathy and
Mhm.
be at one with people is a powerful skill to have. You either have it
Absolutely.
naturally and you augment it, or you teach people how to do it within their own natural, authentic selves.
Mm. Wow. Yes. Clearly, like I said, if I get into a fight in America, I want you on my side.
Oh, no,
Because
you don't.
I know
You'll both
I
end up
want
with
on
the
my
police
side, not
station.
on the other side. I said on my side, not on the other side. I don't want to get into a fight with you. I don't want to get into any defenses with you because I know that you have the dexterity, both intellectually and otherwise, to win anyone. But
Yeah,
what is
I would
even
lead us
better?
into trouble. We'd end up in fisticuffs with somebody eventually.
You know what is even better about it is because you're not going to fight them physically, you're going to fight them with your mind. You see,
I'll remember
and
that next time.
yes, and your mind is pretty sharp.
Thank you,
Like
Gideon.
most people, if let's say they didn't go to college, they'll be trying to hide it. But I know when we met coffee sometime or some time ago, just before the pandemic,
Yeah,
thereabouts,
I
you
remember
you
that.
actually told me, "Hey, Gideon, you're not going to college." I'm like, "What? You're the one of the most brilliant people I know. You mean you didn't go to college, and you, like you say, you don't have no filters. You're
Nah,
not. You do not hold back one single second to say that." Then I started to process it. I started to process it. I said, "But you know what? It is right to say it. It's not good to claim something that you don't have. But guess what? I don't think it's a disability in any way. Because whether you're talking about empathy, you're talking about your ability to process information, you have no single hold back at all, and yet you've done things that few others can could do.
Thank you.
So let's not ever think that education or the ability to learn information and reproduce it in different ways is what we need to succeed. If there's anybody listening to this program or watching this program who has not taken the time to go into college programming and all of that lessons, what message you have for them? Because I know that success takes a whole lot more than just college education, and you've
There
proven
are,
that.
yeah. There are a number of paths that you can take.
Yeah.
The college route is absolutely perfect for those individuals that want that classic education, or it becomes part of their overall plan for how they want to spend their lives.
Mhm.
The warning I have for individuals that who do that is remember that you don't have to stay with what you studied. You can
Yes.
jump ship anytime you like. But we tend to think that success is measured by what we stick the longest with. That is not
Mhm.
always true. Or
Yeah.
you can go the military route and learn a skill and
Yes.
become engaged in the world arena of how combat meets economics or whatever the case may be. But there's
Mhm.
plenty of training in the military. I almost did that one day, had my
Mhm.
hand actually on the door in the UK, and I
Wow.
turned around and left, and I think I did the right thing. Or you can go to a vocational school, which I am praying to goodness comes back, because we need to be able to monetize our skills and our
Yes.
talents. And then
Absolutely.
there's the final gray box, which I think I belong in, where you learn the ability, almost like osmosis, to extract applicable knowledge from people and make it
Mm.
yours. I
Mm.
am not, I don't, if knowledge is depth, I am not linear. I'm like this. There are some things
Okay.
I know deeply, and there are some things I know enough surface that I
Mhm.
can hold a conversation and continue to add to that learning.
Yep.
So I was lucky to have the parents I have. My mom was very into making sure that I was the domestically capable, had great manners, could throw a gracious party, and was a and always said it's important to be able to have a conversation on any topic with anyone else. And just
Yes.
like AI today, you're only as intelligent as your inputs. Your inputs come
Mm.
from your ability to ask questions. My
Mhm.
father always told me you can ask anyone anything. There's no such
Wow.
thing as a bad question. It's up to the individual to decide if they don't want to answer me. But in my
Wow.
lifetime, people have told me shocking, amazing, and interesting things, and I've learned from all of it.
That is that's very interesting. I think your dad was certainly
He's brilliant.
it was a renaissance man.
Yes.
Absolutely. Like nobody in that generation that I know of would train their daughter to be that rounded in both the affairs of the home, the affairs of the world,
Mhm.
and hold their ground wherever they go. So
Yeah. Thank you,
kudos
Daddy.
to
He had
them.
me under the car learning about engines, and my mother had me understanding the finer, intricate workings of making a good bundle of cocky. So
Wow,
I
wow,
got
wow.
both.
I think if you got both, then I think my brother Vincent is certainly a proud man. So let me do a little uh, quiz here that I think would add some depth to our conversation. So if there are these objects on a table, which one would you be more inclined to stand in?
Mm.
Or not on the table, on the floor. You have on the floor, you have a triangle, you have a square, you have a circle, and you have a squiggly. Squiggly means kind of
Mhm.
twisted. So there's a squiggly, there's a circle, there is uh, a
Triangle,
square,
circle, square, and a squiggly
triangle,
line.
square, circle, squiggly. Which one do you think would most represent you?
Squiggly line.
Absolutely yes. I was expecting that, and you got that. And you know what? Somebody who has actually studied that call it psychogeometrics,
Hmm.
and it's almost a science of its own.
Psychogeometrics. I'm scribbling that down.
Psychogeometrics. I'll send you a link to her knowledge, her research, and I find it very interesting because I know the one that I would have chosen. And each time I've tested it with people that I already know a little bit about them, they always choose exact one that they fit into. And squiggly was the one I was expecting for you, and you
Mhm.
are absolutely squiggly because You are undefined. You are like you. Nobody can predict.
Even I can't.
Even you can't. Okay, that's more than I could even expect. Even you can. Now, take me to say England, a place in England that you love a lot, a place in Cameroon that you miss a lot, and one place in America that you also love. If just like a quick teaser, where do you find absolute pleasure in England, Cameroon, and America? Be as specific as possible. And
This question, even before I've opened my mouth, I just learned something about me, and let's see if you pick it up. In England, there are two places. They are a tie. One is my best friend Carmen Austin's house, and the other is
Mhm,
my sister Julie Jackson's house in Swansea.
mhm,
Both of these places offer me the ability to lay down my weapons and be completely defenseless.
mm,
When I'm at my friend Carmen's house, we've been friends since we were 20 or 21 years old. We were born in the same hospital and we met at the bus stop. And no matter how much time or distance between us, we click in a way that I don't with almost anybody else on earth.
mhm.
What do we do when we're together? We watch TV and drink tea. I'm on one end of the couch, she's at the other. It
That's
is
as British as possible.
it is. It's the greatest uh, default setting for me to
Mhm.
regenerate in a
Okay.
place that I feel so much safety and acceptance, and I don't have to say very much. So
Okay.
that's a place. And when I'm with my sister, it's where we sing, we're silly, and we touch the past and re-examine it. It's almost like exchanging stones.
Mhm.
So I love to be. Those are the places in the UK that I love the most. In
Mm.
Cameroon, between my mother's house in Kumba when she was still alive, that was always somewhere that was beautiful and restful, or Hotel Ilumba in Kribi,
Hmm.
where your feet are in the water literally the minute you get there. Those beautiful round buckaroos, the graciousness of the host, the hostesses, the people, the tranquility, the fact that it's not very modern.
Mhm.
Between those two places in Cameroon,
Mm.
it's perfect. America, my house
Yep.
is where I love the most.
Okay.
Not just because my stuff is here, but it's where there is an expression of who I am. If you look behind me, there's my Batmans
Oh.
and there's my prints
Okay. Wow.
and there's my curtains that I made from rapper material. This is
Wow.
where every part of my cultural existence collides beautifully and naturally. It's quite eclectic.
Mhm,
It's
mhm.
very me.
Yeah.
It's where I'm happiest. It's where I can be creative.
Wow. That is interesting. And so, if we had to draw a line from UK to Cameroon, and then to US, what are we going to see? I see a desire for peace, for self-expression. I see a desire for safety, and I think each of those places represents some of that, and eclectic, as you said, because if it's Kumba, anybody who knows Kumba, K Town, it's
Cape Town, crazy town.
K Town is a little crazy,
Yes, it is.
but also a great place.
Mhm.
People live there, they raise families there, they go do great things wherever they go. I've not seen
Yes.
anybody from Kumba that has failed, not one.
They are
They succeed.
all, yeah. The Cape Town is a place where people work to live.
Yes. And if you live there, you go anywhere you can succeed.
Yes.
I don't know about Swansea, but sounds very
Swansea,
swan-like.
Wales is
Swans are very
peaceful and
loyal.
quaint.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then your place, your beautiful place, next to near a river, very historic river, a
Yes.
tributary of Potomac, which I saw right. It's under the shades of tall trees. It almost didn't. I felt like I was in Oregon. I didn't think that I was in Maryland. But also, there's an instrument. You've also done a lot of music. I came to your place. I saw a large piano. You played the piano for me. I'm sorry I didn't play my harmonica for you.
That next time.
I was very shy. So I would, at the very top of the hour, I would do one for you. I don't know. You get to choose Africa, Europe. America,
Probably
Asia.
Stevie Wonder. Don't worry, I know exactly what you're going to do.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. I hope so. I hope so. But tell me about how your early years in music influence your ability to be a high performing executive, because there have been some studies that indicate that people that excel in music, there's something about music that the discipline of sitting down and practicing for hours, it often translates to high level of performance at work, or the discipline to sit down and get things done. Did your early years in music or recitals performance, did that influence your work in some way?
It did. From a
Hmm.
performative perspective, it most
Mhm.
definitely, that much is obvious.
Mm.
From the perspective of the mathematical accuracy required to understand and read music, or
Mm.
to be able to step outside of typical linear thinking, to be able to understand a language that's not directly related to what you speak. Being able
Mm.
to read music from a very early age is really a smart thing to teach a child. It is
Wow.
another form of expression.
Yes.
For me, I was lucky because music, not just from the standpoint of playing those the descant recorders and
Mhm.
all of those things, and my piano lessons and cello, but my first instrument was vocal. So I sang a lot as a child. I sang at weddings and I often did solos. And with my
Wow.
dad's love of classical music, and Latin language played a huge role in my ability to express and use language, because I love
Mm.
etymology. I love rooting. I love to understand how words come to
Origins.
me.
Origins.
I love
Yes.
their origins, and I love
Yes.
what they do and how they make you feel. When I
Mm.
sing and I can feel words in my mouth, it opens up a very different space in my mind, and
Wow.
thoughts flow differently. So
Wow.
it's like changing the channel in a way.
Yep.
So
Yep.
music is helpful for a lot of people. It's also very comforting. But
Yes.
if
Of
you're
course.
able to use your body as an instrument, whether you're dancing or you're singing, you're in a
Mhm.
totally different dimension.
Yep.
Music
Yep.
allows you to deposit ideas, thoughts, and memories in a way that the ancient Greek use of loci, you
Mhm.
can use music to be able to recall things very differently.
Yes. And I can attest to that. I grew up, of course, in Africa, but I love classical music. Don't ask me why or how.
I
It
would
just
love to know
it
what you
just
like to hear.
comes to me. It just comes. I also even go listen to old Italian music, even uh, solo performers.
Yes,
Just love it so much.
beautiful.
And when I listen to African classical music, like people from Mali, from Senegal, they play just
And
the
the
this.
cadence and the polyrhythmic style they have compared to Central Africa,
Yes.
compared to East,
Ooh.
South.
Yes.
And Mali is one of the most important.
To me, yes, Mali is
Yep, I agree with you.
by far
Rock music is born there.
Salif Keita,
Mhm.
and all of those guys. They bring something that I don't even see.
Was Youssou
Even
N'Dour from there? Is Youssou N'Dour
yes,
from
no,
there?
no, he's from, no, he's from Senegal.
Senegal, that's
He's
right.
by far one of my best African artists.
Yes.
And as I grow older, I don't even love to listen to music from Cameroon for whatever reason. But I would cherish every single song from Yusundo, from the
Mhm.
guys from Mali and Senegal. Just the way
Angelique Joe,
Kijo, yes, to
I've
a large
seen her
extent,
live. Amazing.
To a large extent. And I don't know if you know where I'm going with this, but your backstory,
Yeah.
your early years often pave a way into the future, whether it was the music, whether it was the computing, sales,
Sciences.
working sciences, and all of that. Later on in life, what are the things that you did in the 40s? And I know later on you founded Ovawa, but just before Ovawa, what were you doing?
Well,
Obamba,
when I
yeah.
left the UK, I was 26 years old. I was only going on vacation to America, and I never left. Where I'm still here 32 years later, as if I'm still on vacation.
That's a
Still running
long
around with
vacation.
a green card,
That's a
still
very
not choosing to be an American citizen,
that's
still
a very long
me.
vacation.
But I chose to change careers because I wanted the challenge to find out how easily can I start again and be successful. So I
Mm,
actually became a receptionist in an advertising agency. And by the
Mm.
time I left there 3.5 years later, I had got right up to where I was with the account managers and understood what it means to interpret somebody else's ideas for their future business success and
Mm.
interpret and create products, services, and communications to represent that on a larger scale. I
Wow.
also went on to work for a slightly infamous lobbyist in government relations. We can't talk too much about that
Yep.
on
So
another.
leave that to the back.
And yes, and then I got headhunted. I worked for the Investment Company Institute. I also went to work for Charles River Associates. So I was constantly learning the business of consulting, which really came
Mm.
in helpful and very handy. But the future role that determined where I am today was when I got headhunted to go work for a wealthy individual who just said he spoke to me on 4 different occasions about an investment product called a life settlement, but he was on his way to vacation. And I kept asking him, why are we having these conversations? Is there actually a job here? He says, yeah, I already offered you the job. I said, I don't have an offer letter. He said, that you're number one. You'll have to write that offer letter yourself. I'll see you when I get back. Here's my credit card. And I worked with him and built this company up from just me in a room. I hired consultants. I read and learned everything I could about investing, back office operations, asset management, you name it. And we ended up with about $500 million assets under management, with me doing some of that capital raising myself.
No kidding.
Yeah, but it's typical for individuals who, at the time in my 40s, I always prided myself on being a good cog in the machine, an
Hmm.
excellent lieutenant, a
Hmm.
wonderful guardian of operations, and
Yes.
a necessary tool for anybody with a big dream. I never thought that my dreams had an entrepreneurial bent to it, even though I first
Really?
had my own business when I was 12 years old. I had
Now,
completely forgotten about that.
if you were helping someone raise up to 500 million, I'm sure at some point you could feel like, if I could do this for him, I could do this for myself. What was it that was holding you back? Because I don't necessarily see you as the most, yes, you're very loyal, but I don't see you like somebody who want to be a yes, ma'am, yes, sir kind of person.
It's the
What?
thing that most women experience in their lives. I don't suffer. I've never suffered from imposter syndrome specifically,
Mm.
but I never thought to push the boundaries of my current status to something else, because that would have pushed me into an uncomfortable,
Hmm.
non-loyal perspective, which you brought out.
Hmm.
Sometimes our strengths are our weaknesses at the same time. I'm super loyal,
Hmm.
but I've learned that it's such a valuable tool. I shouldn't just cast it anywhere it belongs.
Yes.
It just never occurred to me until I got angry one Tuesday, gave the finger, walked out, and thought, I think I can do this myself. We
Wow.
usually have to be uncomfortable,
Hmm.
disappointed, hurt, or outraged to
Hmm.
make change. Change doesn't come because we're feeling groovy.
That's true.
In the
That's
same
true.
way that intuition and dreams are not the same thing. Intuition is an unpleasant experience. Dreams make you feel cozy and safe. I was no longer feeling cozy and safe. It was time to go.
Talking about groovy, you have to trademark that word. There are some words that some people have made their own real estate. Nike has
Oh,
made real estate of just do it. I think you have to go trademark be groovy as your trademark, because of
writing
all
that
the friends,
down.
of all the people that I've known, wherever I've been, 20, 30 countries, nobody uses that word like you do. And you use it very exponentially different ways. I don't know if they probably don't even care what about dictionary meaning of it, but you're the grooviest friend I've ever been fortunate to
My
have.
mother, because I think I've been using this word since age zero, and
Yes,
it
and
ends up even
you've used it
in
on me. You
my
told me be
business
groovy.
memos.
That is so groovy. I'm like, what? What is that? Like scratching my head. What's and then, but one of my high school was in high school? No, secondary school teachers, Dr. Forming. He told me, you're the silliest student I've ever had.
Did you say
And to prove,
silliest?
yes, he said I was the silliest. And to prove him right, I had to goof around with all these instruments. I am still silly, Dr.
Is that a
Foreman.
kazoo? Oh my word,
Yes,
look at all your
I,
things.
I got, you don't want to see. Don't go there. I got so many silly instruments because Dr.
Oh,
Foreman said to me, you're one of the silliest students I've ever had. I said, sir, thank you. I'm going to prove you right. And I'm still being silly how many years later? But
good for
groovy,
you.
what is it about groovy?
It's as powerful as the word Ashia. It's an
Ah.
all-encompassing word that can adapt itself to the context.
For those who don't know
It's a
Asia,
state of mind. Yes, please explain it.
for those who don't know Asia, it's like, man, how do I explain it? It's like
It's
they're
more
giving
than
you
sorry.
encouragement.
Yeah.
Do
Ashia is
it,
a
do it,
combination of
do
I'm with
it.
you. You have my
Yes,
sympathies. I want to give you
yes.
my power. I would share this burden with you.
I see you.
I see
I
you.
feel you.
Yeah.
You can do it. Go for it. Keep going. So
Yeah.
yes. So you mean Asia and Groovy are on the same?
Yes, I
Okay.
do believe
Okay.
so. And
I
for
see.
me, it's the all-encompassing word that says everything I'm feeling and
Mm.
everything I want to indicate.
Hmm.
It's beyond good. It's when
Yes.
it's simpatico with the scenario, the situation, and yourself. Everything
Mm.
is it's got the
Yes.
vibe.
Yes. Yes. If you know, you know. If you don't
Yeah.
know, you better know. Go learn some pidgin English, whoever is listening to this,
And at
because
the risk
Asia
of
comes from pidgin
shocking your
English.
audience, it's like the word porn. You don't have to have seen it to know it when you see it.
Oh, okay. That one I couldn't catch that, but I
You
will.
shouldn't. You're a good man.
I didn't catch that. I'll come back to it some other time. Now, let's say we look at that company that you did not found it. You helped the founder to grow it. I assume this was in the United States,
Yep, here
and
in Washington, D.C.
I assume the company is still doing well today or is still alive.
Secondary Life Capital went through what many investment products go through. There will
Mhm.
be an attack from the legislator that you have to survive.
Mhm.
There will be the early adopters that define the market. There'll be the
Mhm.
late adopters that suppress the returns.
Mhm.
Then there'll be the interlopers and the pretenders and the service providers. And the next thing you know, you've got a vibrant, mature market class. But
Mhm.
as with everything in this world, what goes up has to come down. There
Yes.
will be market corrections, there will be adjustments, there will be compressions, and you will move beyond the glittering opportunities of where market imperfections meet capital
Mhm.
and explode into huge successes. But when everything settles down, you'll have a few key main players, and
Mhm.
then you'll have the has-beens and the also rans who will
Mhm.
probably go on to do something else. So
Wow.
Secondary Life Capital was also part of this gentleman's company called the Peninsula Group, which has nothing to do with the hotel.
Mhm.
And they went into Florida and they continued what they were doing. But I don't believe that they are working with the large life insurance policies that they used to see where people had 10 million as a death benefit, and it's now much smaller. You don't
Mm.
hear about it as much. And besides, this industry and this asset class came from what they used to call the viaticals. When
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
AIDS epidemic started in the 80s, many individuals needed money to pay for their medication because it wasn't covered by insurance, so they had to sell their
Mm.
life insurance policies in order
Mhm.
to have an end of life management, and that's how
Mhm.
all of this came about.
Mm. Very interesting.
Yeah.
I'm a little familiar with that because Pam is founded a small brokerage with almost 45 agents now, licensed agents, and she's growing this thing like the speed of
Well
light.
done, Pam.
And now I'm learning about viaticals. I'm learning about all of that. And then I see Second Life. Okay, I do not know. Now it begins to ring a bell. So that's really interesting. I have to let Pam connect with you and learn from you or pick
Sure.
up some ideas from
Happy to
you,
help.
especially on how to build. So you built that, it got so big, and then you give the person the middle finger, you left, you went to start a company that was helping people in the motherland
That's
to
right.
live their dreams. That was Ovamba, right?
Yes.
And Ovamba was all over, wasn't just Central Africa. Am I wrong?
We
Was
were expanding into Egypt, South Africa, and we were already operational in Ivory Coast by the time the pandemic came and other things happened.
yes, I know that Ovamba during the pandemic, things really took a turn.
Total turn.
It dived so deep. But tell us, how did you co-found that business? I know you've co-founded with someone, and you are helping people to get access capital that they would otherwise not get from
Yeah.
the conventional market. How did you find that? How did that idea come to you? Because you live in America, you are running a company in the third world. when you're not living in the third world for a very, very long time, different economic systems, different macro systems, there's all kinds of red tape. How could you found such an idea and implement it living here? It's still, I still cannot wrap my mind around that, and I can only applaud you. But tell us how you managed to come into that market, and you govern it, and you mastered it.
Yes, I was working with my business partner at the time, Marvin Cole, and we were taking advantage of the peer-to-peer market that was exploding after the Jobs Act that President Obama passed in around about 2011. Yeah, so when we thought about peer-to-peer lending, Africans have been doing that for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. If you
Mm-hmm.
look at SACCOs and Jangis, Tontine, all of those things, these are peer-to-peer systems whereby your social capital is your credit score,
Mm-hmm.
but it has
Yep.
never been digitized.
Mm-hmm.
So because I don't have a lot of limits on what I should or should not do, can or cannot do, I dived feet first into this when Marvin and I were looking at the market and said, oh, we could definitely do this. We'll go and digitize a few in Jangis. That's not quite how that worked out. And the great thing about ignorance is that you are completely protected from being endangered by your own ideas. Because if I
Mm-hmm.
knew then what I know now, I would have probably been too scared to do it and I would have lost the opportunity. But you
Mm-hmm.
jump in head first and take a look at how can we fund African businesses with capital? Because they
Mm-hmm.
all say access to capital is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But until you get in there and allow the system to kick you to bits, that's when you realize you're not asking the right questions. The inputs are not going to be correct. You start to ask a better question, not how can I get money to Africans? There's money on the continent, probably more than there is outside. The
Mm-hmm.
question is, what are Africans doing with money and how do they get it? When
Mm-hmm.
they get it, does it actually help them grow?
Mm-hmm.
And is financial inclusion related to financial literacy?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, yes. And understanding what people do with money when in a non-digital area where there aren't credit bureaus and data is not sitting in a tidy repository waiting for you,
Mm-hmm.
you end up having to take information to create data and then using technology to test the veracity and its application. And that's how Ovamba came to be. So we stopped syndicating lending with microfinance institutions and banks, but it was such a necessary opportunity to help us understand how does banking work in Central Africa, specifically in Francophone Africa.
Mm-hmm. Deep breath.
And then think about, well, where exactly is the money? And that's when I began to come up with concepts around the velocity of capital, because unless you know whose pockets the money is in, you don't know who
Mm-hmm.
you ought to be speaking to.
Mm-hmm.
We went from trying to resolve the issue of access to capital to defining an ecosystem that I see
Mm-hmm.
many people have adopted today. And
Mm-hmm.
we are the progenitors of alternative trade finance, because
Mm-hmm.
that's what most people are doing. There are very few places on our beautiful continent, Cameroon specifically, where you can go up to the government and say, oh, I haven't got a job. Can I please have some benefits? You're not getting anything. If you
They
can't
would
create
they'll
or,
call the cops on you.
yeah, if
They
you
think you're
don't know how
sick.
to hustle,
They call the mental hospital, and they're like,
yeah,
somebody needs
oh,
some help here.
that's if you can find a mental hospital. That's
Exactly.
another topic.
First, there's none, so that
So
means
most Africans, I would say, let's talk about Cameroon specifically,
yeah.
are all natural entrepreneurs. Lending is not the solution to financial inclusion, and it is definitely not the solution to wealth. Generational wealth transference does not come from banking and money. It comes from performance enhancement and access to global inventory with a
Mm-hmm.
supporting system to ensure that the ability to sell continues, is done well, and is profitable. And that the individual in the middle of all of that is growing and becoming better, especially if they're a wholesaler. That's what that
So,
was about.
where are my brothers? Where are my sisters who are business owners, who are founders, who are pioneers? Pull your chairs closer. Pull your chairs closer. Whether you are in the diaspora, you're in the motherland, you're on the mother continent, pull your chairs closer and hear from this guru, because you you're a pioneer in fintech in Africa. And
Yes.
you gave lots and lots of loans to
No, I
people.
didn't. I made transactions. You cannot make a loan if you are not a bank. Only
Okay,
banks
so
do lending. That was
break it
one of the big things we learned.
break it down. How, let's
Yes.
say I have this lady in Kumba Market who
Mhm.
wanted to buy some special wrappers from the Netherlands,
Yep.
or wax, they call it,
Yep.
or Sikam from Douala.
Yep.
And she needed to expand in the season when people are maybe sending children to school, the Christmas season, there's a lot of business.
Yep.
How were you, as the co-founder of Ovamba, able to help that lady at Kumba Market selling wrappers, and she wanted to expand tenfold?
Well, we created an app called Avamba Plus. So she would have either found that or met somebody or spoken to one of our salespeople, number one. We
Mhm.
would take an analysis of what is she doing. Now, these are individuals that don't keep a balance sheet. They're
Mhm.
not running to Deloitte or any of those groups to get their
They
finance.
could care less about Deloitte. They could care
They
less
don't even
about
know who they are.
PwC, and they don't
People
care
are,
about.
they know
Yeah,
what they buy, they know
yeah,
what they sell.
fair
Okay.
enough. Yes.
So they usually, if you speak to somebody in their own language, they can tell you much more textured, detailed information than if they had to speak it in a post-colonial language. And that's one of the reasons why we created a natural language chatbot with Microsoft way before people were doing this. Now you don't even need those things. There's translators everywhere. But
Mhm.
you ask people questions in their language about how much did you sell? How much did you buy? How
Mhm.
long did it take you to sell it? And we would do an analysis of what we call the rotation of inventory.
Mm.
Individuals like this run into the following cash flow problems. They'll go to their Njangi or to their microfinance institution.
Mhm.
They will provide the information they think that is required of them, and they will wait a few weeks for an answer. When
Mhm.
that answer comes, they might not get all the money they need, and they certainly have not calculated the cost of customs clearance, taxes, distribution.
Yes.
Now, if you give them exactly what they ask for, which is why it's important to disrupt your customer, the customer is not always right. People need to abandon this idea because it's
Okay.
stupid.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. And you're the second person saying that after Steve Jobs. He said
Oh,
customer doesn't always know what they want.
high five, Steve.
Absolutely.
No, customer don't know
Absolutely.
what they want
Yes. Yes.
at all.
Yeah.
So then you take a look at this and you say to them, you've spent 2 weeks getting a loan. You now have to go overseas and buy. After all, you're not doing e-commerce back then. You don't have a credit card and you
Mhm.
cannot verify a KYC or an AML application. And for
Mhm.
those who don't know what that is, know your customer and anti-money laundering are
Mhm.
important bedrocks of good finance.
Mhm.
So this individual, let's say it's a woman, is going to take her money and run all the way over the sea, over the ocean to go and buy something, and she can't even command any discounts.
Yes.
She's got to move with physical cash. She
Mhm.
cannot get a line of credit because most of these banks don't even know how to write a line of credit. Then
Mhm.
she's going to come back over the ocean after she's put these things in a container to a shop or a store that is probably empty. And she still has to pay back that loan, but she
Mhm.
doesn't actually have any inventory to sell. So this cash flow gap is getting bigger and bigger. The
Mhm.
minute the money arrives, she might not even have the money to clear it through customs. Demurrage fees are going up. The cost of what she has to sell, the profits are getting smaller and smaller. When she finally gets it, she's literally got to do a fire sale because she still has to finish paying this back and she doesn't want to lose her position in the
Mhm.
market. She has
Yes.
to do that all over again. So you never actually get any growth. You just stay stuck in a virtual loop
Mm.
of buy and sell on.
Mhm. They call them buy and sell them. That's right.
Exactly.
Yes.
Which
Yes.
is a title and a designation as well as an activity.
Yep.
What we did was we disrupted that cycle. We took a look at how many people were buying from her. And
Mhm.
instead of, and this actually happened with a customer of ours who was in the glass business,
Okay.
she was ordering 2 containers every 6 months. We said to her, we're going to order 6 containers every 2 months.
For you,
Yeah, for on her behalf with
on her
our
behalf.
money.
Yes.
But buying it, this belongs to us. She
Okay.
gets to buy it back from us over a period of time. Because we're
Okay.
not a bank, we're not lending her money.
But there's an
We're
arrangement
allowing
between
it's
you
an
and that
arrangement,
person to
and it's
only
an
buy from
Islamic
you.
arrangement.
So they
Yes,
only have to buy from you. They don't have to bypass you to buy from Europe anymore.
exactly. They
You
can go
sell it.
ahead and buy it from abroad, but
Yeah.
we're going to pay the supplier. We gave no money to customers, which
I
is why
see.
our returns were so good.
I
When the
see.
goods arrive in port, because the facility we have structured for her includes customs clearance, she only has a single price point to buy
Wow.
back from us. And she can buy as much or as little as she wants, according to her sales, according to her cash flow. The
Mhm.
only proviso is at the end of the term, all goods have to be purchased.
Okay.
In order for her to be profitable, she's got some challenges. If she could have bought more, she would have if she'd had the space to store it, but she
Mhm.
didn't. So we had to provide warehousing space. And
Okay.
that's where the logistics meets the alternative finance meets the
Mm.
who owns the goods during the time
Yes.
of transaction. So
Yes.
we create a lot of employment in the area. There were
Hmm.
warehouse managers.
Yes.
We used 3D and machine learning and AI to get a view of how much stock is actually in the warehouse. So as things were leaving, we had the
Mhm.
physical evidence of them moving around, so nobody could really defraud us. We used
Fantastic.
we use optical technology to understand what's
Oh.
physically there and what's not, and cobbled all of this together into a single workflow and a product that we were going to the bank saying, if you want to have less impact of non-performing loans on your portfolios,
Mhm.
use our technology to be able to watch, see, and understand the performance abilities of your customers, because you don't have as many data points in any of your business or your structures the way
Wow.
Bamba does. With this, we
Wow.
were able to fund about $143 million worth of goods in Cameroon and
Hmm.
Central Africa alone in a very short period of time, with a default rate of less than 5% and technology that was truly groundbreaking for its.
Hmm.
We were giving people pre-approval within 60 seconds, and
What?
you could easily have your supplier funded within 48 hours if you had all your documentation. Now,
Hmm.
because of the way this was put together, customers who stayed with us, our technology would tell them when it was time to buy more goods so
Yep.
that they never ran out.
Out of stock. Yeah.
And then they would bring their retailers to us to be funded by us to buy from them. So
Yes.
this complete tight value cycle and circle made it really sticky. So not only were we funding, it ended up with our portfolios had millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of inventory,
Hmm.
including property from when we were using a pre-foreclosure asset swap structure in order to
Mm.
avoid banking, but still
Mhm.
get money on a
Yeah.
secured basis into the industry. And we were the first to do that.
Wow. And it appears even banks were your own customers. Not so not just the small petty traders or the buy and sellers. Banks
Mhm.
were also your customers because they could have real-time monitoring of who they've given a loan
Yep.
to and what is their
What we
stock or
figured out. Yeah,
inventory. Yes,
exactly.
that is amazing. So this was a very profitable business.
It
I
was.
could tell
We
because
were returning
you were
almost.
you were bouncing off every single plane on earth. You're in China,
Everybody
you're in
wanted to
Shanghai,
talk
you're in
to us.
Singapore, you're in Saudi Arabia, you're everywhere. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know that you're related to the royal family in in United Arab Emirates. I don't know you're related to the royal family in Riyadh, but
Only the
you
one
were,
in Pontem.
oh yes, only the one in Pontem, and that's the one that matters. But
Yes.
so you should have done a massive job of raising some of those funds with your partner.
Yep.
Were they all private funds, or did you guys go to some? Um,
The first amount of the first $5,000 I raised was the hardest of all for very
wow,
specific reasons. But
wow.
then again, ignorance protected me. I just ran out and was talking to everybody, very excited, really believing in what we were doing, and raised 1.3 million from an institutional investment group, and did not realize that I was only one of 13 Black women at the time who'd ever raised $1 million for their own innovation, and ended up
No
in Vanity
kidding.
Fair magazine.
No
But
kidding.
I raised about $680,000 from private individuals, including those in the diaspora, before that
Mm,
point. And then
wow.
after that, raised a further 20 something million from Asia for funding those transactions.
Man, you are just shattering all those records. Pa, 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 pa.
Thank you.
That is amazing. That's a true Kumba girl. That's a true Cape
That's
Town.
Kumba
A
Hustle with
true
one
Kumba
one ninety
hustle.
nine cents.
Kumba go before. Okay. That's Kumba hustle.
Go
Right?
for before for
Go
back
back and then
song,
go for
right?
before again.
Yes. So that was how that
Wow.
panned out.
Wow.
And like I said, great default rate
Mhm.
management, excellent technology, great relationships until the Cameroon crisis and the pandemic.
Yes. Yes. Those are the two. Well, that's where we're going. So the pandemic hits. Then the Cameroon, I don't think it's a crisis. It's a civil war. They're using
Is
mitigational language to call it a crisis. A
it,
crisis doesn't cause thousands of people to die.
no, it doesn't.
So
You're right. I
the
always
government
shied
has,
away from that language.
yes, they're kind of cornered us, make us think it's a crisis. No, this is a civil war with millions of people affected. And then that undermines what you've been working so hard to put together.
Mhm.
And I believe last time we spoke, you said Obama was no more. Obama became a victim of that, and everything fell apart.
Well, let me correct that because Ovamba Cameroon still exists and is still quite operational. We
No
had the most
kidding, no kidding. So
incredible team
still
headed,
running.
yeah, it's still running, headed up
Okay.
by Nestor Masse and a few others who
Mhm.
have taken over the work and continue to support local businesses.
Wow.
So
Kudos, kudos.
that to me is the greatest accolade, that you build something and you
Mhm.
walk away and it can continue without you. This
Yes.
is not normal within the African mindset, especially francophones who like to centralize decision making and power with one individual and
Mhm.
not empower others.
Yes.
Whereas we actually did the opposite. We detrained everybody we hired from
Mhm.
the way they saw the world and
Mhm.
encouraged them to be confident with making mistakes as long as they
Wow.
also learned how to mitigate and fix their errors. No one in our company was allowed to come and say, I've got a problem. You better come with a few solutions with it.
Yes.
And
Yes.
we
Yes.
even trained people on how to argue with your boss and not feel like you're going to be fired. So we really broke and rebuilt people in a way that when we decided, I cannot keep coming back to Cameroon, I
Mhm.
don't want to do this anymore.
Mhm.
Neither should I throw this away because businesses need it. My staff was able to say, we'll buy it from you and we'll carry on. And I am now their consultant. When they need something,
Wow.
they give me a shot.
Wow. I salute you. I bow to you because you mean Ovamba Cameroon is still alive, is
Yep,
still
certainly
running.
is.
So they use the back office software or the app that you develop. They're using some of the warehouses that you put
Yep,
together.
they're
It
doing
is
it all.
the other countries that have fallen by the side, but you protecting that one. I salute you for that because
Well, it makes
it is
sense because Africa is a zonal system. So if you're in Cameroon, you're in Chad, you're in Gabon, you're in
yes,
Central Africa. You don't
yes,
actually have to have a branch in every country. And that's one of the
yes,
mistakes people make. I want to go to Africa and do business. Well, first of all, what part? It's not just a little place, it's huge. Secondly, you don't
huge.
need to be in every place. You need to be in key cities. For us,
Yes,
the
yes,
Ovamba model works well when in port cities where there's trade. So
yes,
being close to Mbopi market puts
yes.
you at the heart of the biggest wholesalers of Central Africa.
There you go.
It was
Because
brilliant.
from there, it is a hub system. It goes to Chad, it goes to
Yep,
Central African Republic, it goes to Congo.
exactly.
But wow. So now things did not work, especially because you an avid traveler.
Yes.
I sent photos of you chairing meetings in Singapore, in Hong Kong, in Chengdu, in all kinds of places.
Beijing.
Beijing, wherever,
Yeah.
in America, in England. So, and you definitely a fintech pioneer. Things crumbled during pandemic. You could not travel, and it looks like it took a toll on you personally because you felt like I have got to be out there. That's where my peeps are. I can help my peeps as much as I like, and you let that. Not that you let it. It got to you, and it
Well, let
really
me be
got
very,
you.
very specific about what it was.
Mhm.
The capital that was being placed in the hands of businesses and that drying up made me worry about the fate of so many people who had relied on us. And I took that very personally. The
Yes.
continued returns that I was supposed to be making to investors suddenly
Mhm.
dried up. And
Mhm.
that was awful.
Yes.
Letting investors down made me want to die.
Yes.
Seeing the end of something I'd spent a decade building, knowing that I had been defrauded, not the way people said, oh, be careful, you'll have bad outcomes in Africa. No, we were defrauded by Americans.
Hmm.
They destroyed my dreams.
Hmm.
I felt so crushed that I didn't want to live anymore. I
How did
felt
it?
that I was not fit for any future successes and I could not see my way forward.
Oh my
And
God.
an individual like myself who is so has such a sunny disposition,
Mm-hmm,
I
mm-hmm.
hadn't even recognized that I was depressed because I didn't know what that was. I was
Yes.
used to getting up and just pushing forward.
Yes.
I had no more push forward. I felt boxed in and frightened. I
Yes.
because my energy comes from people.
Yes.
I'm not around human beings with the ability to sub back to somewhere peaceful. That
Yes.
cycle of regeneration is broken.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's broken, your brain enters a poverty mindset
Yeah.
where all it can do is shut down to protect itself. And it cannot open up to creative output, which has
Yes.
to go hand in hand with risk. And
Yes.
if risk has become so scary, you
Yes.
cannot be creative. And if you're
Absolutely.
not creative, you cannot produce. And
Yes.
I was in a place of darkness so bad that the only way I could get myself out of it was to write about it because I didn't know what the heck was going on. My husband knew. If you're thinking of killing yourself, I suggest you don't. And
Hmm.
all I could say is, I don't want to be alive anymore because I thought,
Mm.
well, I just want to die and come back a little bit later. That's not how death works, ladies and gentlemen. Death is you're gone, the funeral's over, you're in the ground, and everybody carries on with their life. You're not coming back for a do over. You must find a way to revive yourself. You
Mm-hmm.
must reinvent and you must figure out some things have to be put down for
Hmm.
good
Wow.
in order for you to get the next thing. Because what actually happens is I believe I missed the cues for reinvention. So I had to
Mm.
pay a heavy price for it later. I
Wow.
had become so good at doing what I'm good at. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't doing what I was passionate about. You
Yes.
may think, listening to me, oh, she absolutely loves banking, finance, and fintech. I like it. I'm really good at it. That's not what I love. I love something else. That was complicated.
Yes.
And in being in that deep, dark hole of depression was the only way that I could see myself. We see ourselves best in the dark.
Yes. Wow. Wow. I had no idea it was that dark. I had no idea it was that deep. And that was like such a horrifying place to be in. And for someone, like you said, you have a sunny disposition, no question about that. To be in that kind of place has to be like a cave
It was
with no outlet.
none, no escape,
So no
only one
escape.
way out.
So how did it feel from day to day? How did you grind out your days? I don't want you to go back there in a way that will be
Oh, I'm
too
okay to go there. Don't you
just give
worry.
us just a little inkling because
I'll try.
I want people to understand even high functioning individuals
Yeah.
can descend into a dark place. But we have to make sure we recognize we should not give up. We have to find a way. We keep scratching on the wall, like learning firefighting. If it's completely dark, find a wall, start touching on the wall, move all around
Get a
until you
sense
find a
of
door.
dimensions.
Yes. So what kept you going in the darkest moment?
There was always a part of me, like a flickering flame, that
Mm,
always believed that surely I'll come back stronger again one day.
mm,
I just don't
mm,
know how. I was never wired to be a loser. This is the individual that never went to college but built algorithms and did a whole bunch of things, raised lots of money and worked for IBM. So my baseline is what my father told me it was. I'm black, I'm female. The world will always put me at the bottom of the priority list.
you're
And
talking
I
about.
will always be told what I'm not good at.
Mhm,
In order to win in this life as a black female, you have to believe that you are better than other people as long as you can prove it. And you
mhm,
also have to believe the other thing that my dad said, which is you will always be working 3 times harder as anyone else in order to just get there, which means that someone else's worst your worst day is someone else's best day. At no
wow.
point while I wanted to die did I think that I was such an abject failure that there was nothing left. My problem
Mm,
was I couldn't find my way out, just like you saying,
mhm,
going around trying to find the doors to get out, but there were no doors. I had to climb up. There was no
mhm,
easy exit this time. I am so grateful for my moments of depression because I got to recalibrate and understand myself
mm,
differently. So here's what the days were like. The night times were the worst. So I would avoid going to bed because when your eyes close, your subconscious takes over to tell you the things you've been avoiding in the daytime.
That's true.
And the horrific stories,
Jesus.
the meltdowns, the beatdowns, the narratives were horrific. Things like, you're a bad wife, you better get a divorce from Vincent. Because of you, your family's pension plan is destroyed. If he had been with somebody else, this would never have happened. Look what you've done. And it feels so scary. Or you think to yourself, if your mother dies now, you're not going to have any money to bury her, and you will be in the deepest of shames and the regret. So it was the hammer of shame and guilt
Mhm.
that kept me beat down, beat down, beat down, always. So then in the daytime, I'm chasing every other little pseudo addiction: TV,
Mhm.
drinks,
Mhm.
being with my friends, just not able to even look in the mirror. I could look in the
Mhm.
mirror and not see myself. I had
Mhm.
become so invisible in my reality until one day, sitting listening to one song over and over again. I think it played almost 60 times.
What's the name of the song?
You Never Ask Me by Melody Gardot. And
Mhm.
this is where music is my greatest weapon.
Hmm. You Never Asked Me by Melody. Gardot.
Yes, it is a plaintive, melancholic longing with musical notes arranged as if it's going down in a spiral.
Mhm.
I'm trying to prevent myself from singing it because every time it
Yeah.
comes, I can feel it in my chest.
Mhm.
And the words, it's really her trying to tell her lover, you never asked me how I feel. You never asked me how I'm carrying on. And it just keeps going down. And then at one point she says, and I'll wait by the hours, hoping one day, maybe someday you will be to change your mind. So I felt as if I was waiting for my life to turn around and ask
Mm.
me back into it, that my life
Mm.
had not asked me, how do I feel? My life had not asked me. And it wasn't my life I was asking, it was the character of the depression that I
Mhm.
was having this exchange with. And while listening to this music, something in my mind opened up and I started to write.
Hmm.
I started writing about Mel and
Mhm.
our fight in this pit as I struggled to look in the mirror again and find a shred of self respect and hope in order
Mm.
to leave this pit. And in the end, I found out nobody was keeping me there. It was me. I
Wow.
had to rewrite what I call my permission codes to
Mhm.
exist again, to have the right to be happy, despite
Mhm.
the fact that, as my brain was telling me, look how many people you've made unhappy. I hadn't
Hmm.
made people unhappy. I had not been able to return their investment capital. That's not the same as happiness. So
Mhm.
I had to really learn to recategorize things. And
Mm.
I had to give myself permission codes to be happy.
Hmm.
When you're black, if you've ever been a victim, if you've ever suffered guilt and shame, one of the functions of the human psyche that it will do, that you must never ever do or let your children do, especially if you are from enslaved people,
Mhm.
in order for you to do well in life, you unfortunately have been provided with a yardstick and a limit that has been created by those people who are quote unquote over you. For
Mhm.
you to get out and breach the meniscus of that limit, you have only the ability to be more like them in order to be less like yourself. They've
Mhm.
already told you that you are not good enough. For
Hmm.
you to be less good enough, you have to be more like them. That's what
Mhm.
happens with oppression. I had
Mm.
oppressed me and didn't realize, no, I have a right to be happy. None of these things are actually true. That's my internal ecology suffering.
Mhm.
How do I heal me again?
Mm. Wow. But
That's
those permission codes, let's talk about those permission codes because when I read Mel, it's the finest piece of writing I've read this year, period.
thank you.
By a wide, wide valley. I was so touched and so moved. But when you told me how long it took to write, I'm like,
A month.
man, not only are you an absolute brilliant writer, and I'm envious of you. But at the same time, I salute you. But also, it's like, wow, if you could crystallize your thoughts that way in such with such clarity, with such pump, it's so clear. Tell me, did those permission codes filter through in the writing, or was it through the music, or was it just through the looking at the flickering light at the end of the tunnel,
It
as you
was
call it?
both.
Wow. So,
Music informs me all the time. I am a huge Prince fan. I have been since I was 16 years old. And I long ago recognized that music and lyrics, because I love words, have the ability and the power to represent what you can't say. It's a permission code in itself. So for
mm,
me, if it's in writing and there's even a slight lyrical indication that it
mhm,
represents what I'm thinking, it's enough of a key to unlock the door. And I
mm.
find all kinds of things behind there.
Fantastic. Thank you. So, for anyone who is watching this, music can be it can be a powerful breakthrough. It can be an outlet. It can be that aperture that you need to see through that dark moment that you might have experienced or you're currently experiencing. Words
Can even be a suitcase.
can be a suitcase, but also words, the words that you put at the top of your mind, they could represent hope or they could represent failure.
Yep.
So, what are three words that you're most fond of? What are the three best words, if you don't mind?
Not including groovy, right?
Not including group is already at the top of
Exactly.
group is already at the top.
Words that empower me, that make me feel a sense of power.
Yes, that could give a stimulation to someone who is maybe struggling with something. They're thinking, am I the same person? Am I the same CEO? Am I the same founder who is able to crush things, who is able to get into places that others could not even get inside? Am I the same person? They're having doubt. What are three words that you say, they've informed you that some others can benefit from?
In my life, those touchstone power words are push,
Push,
rise,
wise,
and arrogance.
and arrogance. Why arrogance?
I am a functionally arrogant person.
ah! Functionally
My
arrogant.
dad did this to me.
So
I
that
am
must be
aware
because your dad
I
said you must
have
be three
a
times better than
arrogant
him.
streak.
Mhm.
It annoys some people, but I am unlikely to abandon it. I call myself functionally arrogant because I'm aware that it is my own sense of personal perception, and it does not necessarily mean that it exists in the real world. I always have to watch to see people's reactions to me, to read the mood in the
Uh-oh.
room, because
Uh-oh.
I can come across as a right piece of bloody work. And I'm very unpredictable. I'm
Uh-oh.
even shocked sometimes by half the crap I do or some of the lovely things that I do. If I, in fact, you've met my husband Vincent. He's a lovely, lovely human being. And I remember once I was fishing for compliments for him, and I said, "Don't you think I'm lovely?" He says, "No, no, you are not a lovely person. I pity members of the public who have to encounter you.
Uh-oh.
You're smart, you're strong, you're nice, you've got a lot of self-respect, you're confident, you have the ability to kill a fruit fly with an atomic weapon. You are over the top, but you're not lovely."
Ah.
And
I
when I
think
was younger, my
he was,
parents
he was, he was
me
having a bad day, maybe.
yeah, well, that's actually how I am in general. And my parents used to call me Sergeant Major, that I was horrifically militant as a child, very
Uh,
bossy and very
and talk,
instructional.
but let truth be told, it is that strength that has allowed you, that fiber, that material, that graphite in you that has allowed you to do great things.
Graphite,
And
great
you
choice of
have
word.
reinvented yourself. You created Toolbox. And I went online, said it when we talked was over the phone, right? So
Mhm.
I started looking Toolbox, Tool,
And you
Toolbox,
couldn't find
Toolbox.
it.
I could not find any Toolbox. I'm like, why is she BSing me? I don't know you to be a BS person. Why are you BSing me? Why are you doing this to me? Why are you doing this to me,
I
Viola? I'm
know.
excited about Toolbox, only to realize last week that Toolbox is
You
Tull. It
E.
almost sounds like it's this kind of flimsy material
Yes.
that can be used in wedding dresses. That
Yep.
is flowery. What? Heck are you going with toolbox? I was looking for tools. I need some tools to build some stuff. Why are you giving me tool? T-U-L? It almost sounds so British. Are you? What's going on with toolbox? Tell us what's inside the toolbox anyway before you define it. What's inside that toolbox?
The
If it's a
toolbox is
box.
what, when I claimed out of the pit with Mel
Hmm.
and realized, as you know, on the final line, there is a part in the story where I had picked up a piece of paper and I didn't look at it. I put it in my pocket and I was running around in the pit and sat down, just brokenhearted. And when I took out the piece of paper, it said, "Let go." I went, ooh. And then I realized that in your life, human beings, don't ever let anybody else hold a remote control. It's yours to change the channel or switch it off, turn up the volume, whatever. It's yours to control.
Hmm.
So as I climbed out of the pit and the world seemed clearer, and I realized I can help myself. If I'm feeling like this, I can help other women as well, especially
Hmm.
women. And I decided that I needed to be aware, prepared, and ready, because the biggest lesson I learned from this was there have never been so many women in the history of the world living this long with as many resources. And women are
Hmm.
never the same woman twice. But we're not taught how to pivot in our own lives because we're told that changing your mind is flimsy. And we want to be able to show a long track record of doing something for so long, so well, therefore we're a
Hmm.
success. But that is a lie as far as I'm
Hmm.
concerned.
Hmm.
You have to be able to understand your own cosmic cycle,
Hmm.
how and why you end up changing and making a pivot, and prepare for it. You have to become aware, prepared, and ready. And there are different methodologies that I use to do this. Between the friend that came to me and said, "Have you ever heard about human design? Perhaps, Viola, what has happened is you have strayed from what your natural, authentic, aligned sense of power and sovereignty is." I had. I was so
Hmm.
busy being someone else's best lieutenant, I'd forgotten to captain my own ship. That's the first.
Hmm.
And that's
Wow.
the permission code is take
Hmm.
the freaking wheel.
Take the wheel. Take the wheel.
Take the
Okay.
wheel.
Take the wheel, folks. Take the wheel and grab your remote control.
Grab your remote
This
control.
is my remote. I could control this light. I could get it back on.
You
So
have all the power.
that's part of
You
my
are not
permission code.
unempowered. And then
So
I also realized that sometimes there may be no vehicle that you can jump into. You will have to build your own getaway car. And that's what the
wow.
toolbox is. I had to create a structure and a reality that other people could connect to as I talk about women and explain to them, you don't make the mistakes I've made. I know what my mistakes are. I've looked in the mirror and survived what looked back at me. And I turned all of those pains, those lessons, those sufferings, those awarenesses into small modules and workshops. In fact, we've got a
Mhm.
workshop. It launched today in Kenya, teaching
Talk
women
about
how
talk
to
about
live.
a phoenix.
I know.
Talk about a phoenix.
Yeah,
That's why I
coming back.
named this session a phoenix moment, finding a thread of hope to turn it around. So you're launching Toolbox in Kenya today. I thought it was only for United States.
No, this is a global thing. In Kenya,
Wow.
we have women signing up to learn how to use communications and media to elevate their businesses and their personal brands. Because I've learned how to do that rather well.
Are you teaching coding and algorithms? Because it
No,
looks like you've
I'm
written code.
no
Okay.
longer in that. I
Okay.
never wrote code. I tell people what to write.
Yep. Just like Steve Jobs.
Exactly.
He
And
got
my
other
business
people to.
partner, Kate Byrne, is absolutely brilliant. She comes from the media and communication side. I come from technology, sales, marketing, and emerging markets. So between us, we've got a really good overlay.
Mhm.
We've done the only thing I did in finance is recently I've been delivering a product for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation through Future Fish on early stage finance because of everything I learned in Cameroon. That will never go to waste. We are
There you go.
always going to be out there advising people on alternative finance and early stage finance. I just don't want to do raising capital and funding businesses myself.
So you got big names like Melinda Gates to be part of the toolbox
Yes, yes.
ecosystem. And if you look inside that toolbox, are you seeing more of mindset, tool set, skill set? What's inside the toolbox? If you could summarize it
Yes,
practically, what will I see? Will I see a South
practically
African
what you're
vuvuzela? Will I see a vuvuzela to get people to come and attend the workshop? What will I see inside the toolbox? Let me know because I would have to get people to come watch this show. No show has ever gone over an hour and 5 minutes,
I
but this could
know.
go on forever. But I am so grateful. But tell us what's inside the toolbox before we wrap up
Inside
with a
the
couple of tips.
toolbox is everything. Actually, hold on a minute. I've got something here to show you. The screen is going to move. Bear with me just a
No
second.
worries, no worries. Screens can move, but the people wouldn't move.
That's right. Human design.
Mhm.
I swallowed this after I came out of the pit because a friend of mine mentioned it to me.
Yep.
This is brilliant. And I combined it with the greatest gift my father ever gave me. I learned to read and write when I was 3,
No kidding.
by copying his psychiatry notes,
Wow.
which is why I got expelled from nursery school. I was
Yeah,
bored with the
you
rubbish they.
told me you're the only person that's ever been
I
expelled
mean,
from
kicked out of
kindergarten.
kindergarten. But
Yeah,
I've
that's
combined human design with transactional analysis, which is an area of psychology and psychiatry that my father was a huge proponent of. And I'd read most of it by the time I was about 10.
mm,
And so, what I've done is these modules are created around the internal dynamics of individuals who are either in stress or wanting to understand what their intrinsic methods of coping are.
mm,
We in transaction analysis, the human being is divided into the grandparent, the parent, and the child, and it kind of corresponds to id, super id, and ego. And
mm,
what I've done with these ideas is help people understand who's making decisions, who's holding a remote control
mm,
during these times. For
mhm,
example, when we are afraid, we can sometimes revert to childhood state, but there is an adult in your psyche who
mhm,
can bring an intellectual calm, and there is a grandparent character that can
mhm,
be emotionally nurturing. How do
mhm.
you access all those pieces of you and those influences to give you the end results that you want? The
Wow.
toolbox combines that with your human design.
Mhm.
I am a manifesting generator. I'm an individual who generates ideas and throws it out into the world. There
Yep.
are some people who are reflectors. They have to be invited to respond, and they portray back at you what's
Yep.
really going on. So I
Mm,
found my place and I started to really dig into who I truly authentically am. It made
mm.
all the difference in the world. Success
Wow.
had come quite well, and all of my previous lessons, they really work in this space. So with the women in Kenya doing the media and communications training, we've got another workshop coming up. Investors are looking for us because they see that there is a place in investment for improving outcomes by supporting the skills and the business abilities of the people that they're investing in, especially women. So I've got,
Wow.
then we're getting calls from academia saying, between traditional in education and even virtual learning and vocational learning, how do we help people figure out their method of learning and how they succeed, and how do they pivot and make change and still be happy in
Mhm.
all of this? So this whole world has opened up.
Wow. No kidding. How long did it take to design Toolbox? And where can we find it online, if that's
Yeah,
possible?
www.tulle-box.com. And it started out with me just writing things down for about 3 months. Then I found my business partner in November,
Mhm.
and I started building the website. I'm not good at building websites, so I got somebody else to help me out.
Fair
And
enough.
I have to say, I can safely say we've been absolutely functional and writing contracts and proposals for people. Let's call it January 1 of this year. So from January 1 of last year to getting that awareness, studying and reading, building out the concepts, verifying that my point, that what I was thinking was right up until August of last year. And then building the website myself, meeting my business partner. She signed our partnership agreement in November, and that's when I started bidding and doing actual projects and workshops. We did one in Cameroon on financial literacy.
The phoenix is back
They come
soaring
out.
again. The phoenix is flying again. It's like
That's
soaring again and roaring again. This is simply breathtaking to me. I don't know who are the people watching, my folks, my peeps in Asia, in the Middle East, in Africa, in Europe. Wherever you're watching, you had better go look for the Toolbox
We've got
and
great workshops for
connect
people.
with Madame Viola Llewellyn. I hope I pronounced that name right.
Yep.
Connect with her, because if you want to become a phoenix, if you want to reinvent yourself, if you want to roar and soar again, you had better have these kind of skills in the toolbox. So before you go,
Yes.
what's the best book you've read? This is a rapid fire last minute or so. Best book.
Business book or what?
Yeah. Okay. One business book, one general.
Well, you see, I just started this one.
Okay. Is that the best?
Well,
Are you loving it? It's my second work.
I know. I
Thank
have
you.
your
Thank
first
you.
book as well. I was looking for it and I
Oh
really
my.
enjoyed that. This
Okay.
is a book I am looking forward to digging into because I'm going to learn a lot and I
Thank
believe
you.
it's going to validate a lot for me. So I love
Thank
this
you.
book. You guys
Thank
need to get this.
Science of Storytelling by
Science
yours
of
sincerely.
storytelling.
Yes.
And strangely enough, the book that always comes back to me is not a business book. It's a book called Silk
So,
by uh, uh, Alessandro Barrico.
uh-huh.
And it is a very short novel. I like the format of it because
Mhm,
I like writing and I know I'll never write a full book. I'm an
mhm,
essayist. And this
mhm.
short book is the most silent love story that never happened between a man and a woman he only ever saw once on his trip to buy silkworms in the 1700s. But
Oh
the
my
book
God.
is potent with unspoken passion.
Wow.
I am I have a recklessness to my spirit that I know will never go away. I would walk 1,000 miles for a moment of love. I swear to you. It
There
just
you go. That's it. That
and
is a
that's what music does for me.
that's a power that will help you go create things that nobody has
Mhm.
created. There's a power that got you to raise more money as a black woman in the top 10 got mentioned in, is it Vogue, or you were mentioned in
Oh yeah, Vanity Fair
Vanity
magazine.
Fair. There you
Yep.
go. So how many people I know have done that? I don't know many. So you are in that category because of that kind of passion. Now, tell me, what is your best song, if there's any? Is it Prince? Is it Prince
It
Ayango?
all depends on the mood. However, I have to say the song that makes me feel like I can fly is "Bye Bye American Pie" by Don McLean, and I
Okay.
know every word of that song. And it's the strangest thing for a child of African descent from the UK to have love for an American song that talks about music from the 50s. But for
That's
some
what,
reason, that song has an energy that makes me want to fly.
there you go.
I
It
love it.
doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be from one place, and that's why you're squeaky.
Very
Uh,
squiggly.
yes. And if you had to have coffee with one person, and it's not your husband, and it's not some other person from your family, or a close friend, or an associate, a friend like me, who would that person be?
Viola Davis.
Wow, Viola Davis.
I
Okay,
want to know how heavy was her name to carry as a child?
okay. Why is that so?
Mine was heavy to carry as a child.
Because
Everyone I
of the
spoke to,
accomplishments of your parents.
no, it wasn't that. It's what is involved in the name Viola. Let's take it back. Shakespeare, Twelfth
Mm.
Night or what you will. Viola is the twin sister of Sebastian. In order for her to meet her life's potential, she actually had to masquerade as a man at the court of Malvolio. How many times have I had to push my way into spaces?
Masquerade.
As yeah, as different versions of who I truly am. And whenever
Wow.
somebody asked my name, they'd always say something like, "Oh, I know someone who's dead. I know some old woman with that name. I know someone with senility." It was a name that no one ever heard. It was old and it was related to violet, which smells. The name even smells weird.
And
It's like
you have a thing for smells, which I don't
it's,
even want us to go there today. But let me tell you this: my understanding of it, and thank God I did not read that part of Shakespeare.
yeah,
I think it's a beautiful name.
it's a gorgeous name.
Except
I have
that in
to go
French it
into
means
it.
there.
Yeah,
Voila,
voila.
voila, voila. There you go.
This
Got
is
it.
what I'm saying.
So
So
I
I
use the
want to
French
know
version. Use the
from
French version.
Viola Davis, how
Yeah.
heavy was your name to bear as a child?
Okay. Wow.
I love it
Now
now.
she is an amazing, confident
Did you see her in The Woman King?
sister. Yes, I've watched her in many places, and I think I've seen some portion of the Woman King. But she's a force of nature,
I've
just like
watched it
you,
7 times. I
just
watched it
like you.
the first time. I watched it twice in a row without. I watched it and just started it all over again. I
Wow,
was verklempt, as they would say in Yiddish.
she is something else.
Yeah.
And the way she carries herself, the way you carry yourself, the things that you do, the things that she's done, I'm sure that would manifest itself someday. And talk about manifesting generation. You got to manifest that, make it happen.
Absolutely.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Viola. I don't want to abuse your time because I know there are a thousand things you need to do. And I'm forever grateful to you for
You
making this time and unpacking what it takes for the phoenix to die and to rise and roar and soar again. This is the Story Warrior channel, and I am forever grateful to you. Thank you so much, man.
It was a pleasure, and thank you. Be groovy.
And before you go, let's see if this is groovy or not.
I can't hear it.
You can hear it?
Yeah.
Can you hear it now?
Just a little bit. Yes.
Oh my God. Okay, the settings might have changed, but guess I promise I'll send you a better version of it, not on Spotify, directly into your WhatsApp box.
And we'll do karaoke one day.
I'll try. I can read musical notes, so
doesn't matter.
Okay. Thank you so much, Viola. Have a great day.